Mike from around the world.
Pastor Paul Bagley, I hope you can hear me pretty good.
I can hear you, but hang on.
All right.
I need to hear it there. I'm plugged in. Wait. I got the speaker on. Do I need that off? Hang on. Let me try it again. Okay, Mike, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
I am right here.
All right, Mike, how you doing tonight?
Good. Busy, but good.
Well, I guess you would be. I mean, we've had almost Armageddon, happen since the last time you were here. And it's really getting serious over there in Israel and in Gaza and the other nations. And we kind of need to know what is going on as far as the other nations. Are they sitting on pins and needles? Are they getting ready to jump in? We had 3 rockets fired out of southern Lebanon today, which probably were Hezbollah. And 1,600 rockets have already been fired out of Gaza, maybe more than that. You may have more intel on us than that. A lot of people getting killed on both sides. And you also, tonight, you want to talk about time dilation? Is it dilation? Dilation. You know, I almost said it. I said every word but dilation.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay. Turn him up a little bit here, Israel.
Had the right idea.
But Mike, let's start, Mike, if you don't mind, with what's going on right now in the Middle East, and tell us, give us an idea what's happening and what's about to happen.
Well, if you guys haven't noticed, Israel is working Iron Dome overtime. Keep in mind that's made for long-range intercepts. It does the last tests of the Iron Dome when they did short-range intercepts. 2 tests were interrupted, so they never got the proper feedback for that. The software failed on 2 of the short-range tests. Keep that in mind. There's a reason for that, but it's a long-range system. It does fairly well with mid-range missiles. Hezbollah has surprises. They have been taking the money from a while ago, 2016. They amassed a lot of money, but instead of putting that money in infrastructure, they put it in their military offensive forces. So they have new technology, scientists, and everything else, and they have a new type missile that they haven't used yet. Nobody's sure how that's going to play out, but I suspect it's going to be damaging.
Is it is this now the A-120, or is there something else?
No. They have something else.
Wow.
They have another. In fact, they have a few surprises. They've been very tight-lipped. The world knows that they've had some really credible scientists, some great engineers working for them. And so that's something we're going to have to deal with. Israel is watching this closely. They're countering that by sending or have sent 15,000 soldiers near that border. So they are getting ready for strategy. In fact, they should be live here shortly. Twice they'll be live. They should be.
When you say live, do you mean they're going in?
They're going to be live. Israel is going to have their podiums ready, and they're going to speak to the country, to the world, in fact. Now, ironically, Joe Biden has complimented Israel on its actions so far. So that's odd. But Iron Dome, as we all know, Iron Dome has a finite number of intercept missiles, and they have just been, barraging Israel with lots of missiles. And the Iron Dome system so far has been 80% accurate, which is pretty good. Some missiles got through. Some people were, of course, casualties. And that will continue. But it's about to escalate big time. It's going to escalate big time. They've also noticed a lot of chatter with a lot of a few nations around them talking with Hezbollah. And, of course, you have other alliances in the Middle East who have strategic and financial interests with Israel that are they're sitting back right now. So we see the beginnings of something very serious. This won't be like the last one because Hezbollah has a new technology. They will not hesitate to use it. They too are saying, here's what they're boasting, that they're utilizing restraint, right? But and Israel, keep in mind, they have internal riots also. In the United States and New York, there are riots also. So don't be surprised if operatives, based upon feedback from the United Nations or any Western nation, don't be surprised if we have internal feedback from this. During the time of this assault between Hezbollah and Israel, we were hacked. The U.S. was hacked. And just yesterday, we were hacked 3 more times. We ended up paying the money.
Mike, right now, for a moment, your microphone is muffling. It's going in and out, in and out.
What about now?
That's better.
What about now?
That's better.
Let's switch to another. Okay, we're good to go?
Yep,
okay.
Good to go. So you're saying we got hacked 3 more times? What,
Yeah,
is it in our infrastructure or where?
It is. But what they're doing is, a lot of people don't know this, but this is not the first time this has happened. We have our nuclear facilities. They are often the target of these same hacks. We paid out a lot of money to get people to let loose of our software and technology and infrastructure more than a few times. And I think this is really about to expose how lazy we have become. We're just not, Pastor Ball, it was on a consistent basis. I often say that we have become lazy. We're not watching things the way we should have. We're not hungry enough, and we've relaxed too much. And there are a lot of things that have happened and are happening, which it really conveys vulnerabilities that the United States has. And there were repercussions behind this. The pipeline, that was just one example of something that happens all the time. You're looking at Amazon and Walmart, and all these guys have been held hostage and paid money out to hacker groups to get their data released. Imagine that. That's not good. That's just not good. So we're in that position. We're scrambling. Everybody is scrambling right now. It's almost like they're trying to put icing over a cake that does not exist. And, we really have to make some choices. I'll tell you now that the rest of the world is looking very closely at the Middle East right now because they know that Hezbollah is only a matter of time before they utilize new missiles. And a couple of weeks ago, besides the dates that I gave you, June 18th, May 14th, today is one of those dates, May 14th.
This is May 14th. Yes.
Yeah, it's May 14th. So it's somewhat of a climax, and a show and tell today is going to take place within this 48-hour range surrounding those dates.
Okay, now let's talk about that show and tell. Are you saying between the showdown between Israel and Gaza, we're going to have a show and tell? We got to find out what this technology, this new weaponry they have, or are we going to find out if Israel's going to do a ground invasion? I mean, do you think Israel's going in, Mike, with 15,000?
We got to call their bluff. We have to call their bluff. They've not remember them. They're sending 15,000 soldiers.
Yeah.
There, okay, that's a lot of soldiers.
That's a lot of soldiers.
You don't do that just for posturing. They have an active military. Hezbollah is they ought to be careful. Israel is utilizing magnificent restraint against these guys because if they wanted to hammer them, they could do so and it would be over. But the world would respond in a negative way. And I know a lot of people ask, why don't they do something about this? Well, they are. And you have to remember that the world hates Israel. There's an underlying hatred against Israel. And if they respond too heavily, right, because the only reason the U.S. is still on board is because they're saying that Israel is responding in good proportion, right? They're looking at proportion. So if Israel over responds, well, we don't know what will happen. And that just wouldn't be good.
I'm expecting that, Mike. I'm actually expecting by tomorrow morning to hear the United Nations start condemning Israel, saying that they've been too aggressive. They're over, in proportion. It doesn't make sense, which I don't understand that. If somebody shoots 1,600 rockets at you, what part of that do you not understand is wrong, especially when they're firing at civilians? I mean,
well, there's an underlying spiritual hatred of Israel. For example, why do people hate rats? The truth is, people don't know. They just don't like rats. They like squirrels. A squirrel's a fuzzy rat, right? So this same type of natural dislike a lot of people have of Israel. And if they overstep their bounds, according to people's eyes, if they defend themselves a little too good, the world's going to turn on them in a heartbeat. I always have to remember that in prophecy, the world, all the armies of the world come against Israel. All of them do.
Yeah, it says that.
Yeah, and which is not, that's a hard pill to swallow, but that's the nature of it.
Well, part of it is when you turn on somebody is when you don't do what you say you're going to do. I mean, maybe, for instance, the United States may not even have to fire one shot at Israel, just simply lifting their hand and walking away and letting the enemies come at them. That's turning your back. I mean, that's certainly turning against.
I don't think Israel will. I don't think the U.S. will ever go against Israel. I think the U.S. is going to be held in a tight bondage, right?
Yeah.
But we'll cover some of that here shortly because the U.S. might want to wake up fairly quickly. But Israel is we see prophecy playing out. We see a strong dislike. And tonight, the following day is going to be a show and tell. It's going to be a call your bluff moment. Israel is going to have probably in total about almost 40,000 troops down there at the border.
That's a pretty number. By today? It's already May 14th. It's already May 14th.
They're sending 15K, right?
Okay.
They're sending 15K. There's already soldiers stationed in that area. So that's quite a few. Benjamin Netanyahu, who wants to call up reservists right now. He wants to call them up. He's campaigning to call up some reserve forces, police forces, military forces inside the country and outside. So he wants to do this. He wants to call up the IDF to help with a lot. So it'll likely be, probably be over 40K.
Is he wanting to do this, Mike, because he wants to go urban warfare door to door, or is he trying to protect?
He's got to be ready for it. He's got to be ready for it because remember when he blew up the tunnels last time, right? Hezbollah changed their tactics. All their tactics have been altered. They've had help. Money has been pouring in from Iran and other places.
Right.
And remember the injection of cash. Remember they were friendly for a moment, right? When they were friendly and everybody was giving them money. And then all of a sudden, when they got the money they wanted, they turned their back on the table saying, this isn't the deal we wanted. You got up and walked out of the UN.
Yeah.
But they had all the money. So they have procured quite a bit since then. And, now here we are. Here we are again. Keep in mind, they're not only do they have the problem in Gaza, but they also have that same problem in Syria. They also have that same problem in parts of Lebanon, Syria. You just, back all the way up to Turkey, and they have issues. It's a tinderbox over there. And so we're seeing something unfold.
Let me ask you a question now. As Israel is really pounding Gaza now, and they're not doing it, they're trying every way in the world to not hurt the civilian population. But obviously, the civilians are a lot of times used as human shields or even killed by the Hamas and then blamed on.
Right.
We know this. These guys don't care.
Right.
Are you concerned, or do you think we've seen 3 rockets come flying out of Lebanon into Israel tonight? Do you think we're going to see, is Hezbollah going to be the second front that's going to open up, or is there going to be a second front, or do you think we're going to see maybe also a third front with Iran and Syria, and don't forget Turkey and Russia and everybody else back there? But I think the second front would be Hezbollah. Do you feel like that's going to happen, or are they going to hold back?
It looks like it might be. Keep in mind, they do have new technology. They are probing Iron Dome to see what they can do. Iron Dome, by the way, it's a good system, but everybody should remember back in 2010, the United States poured a lot of money into Iron Dome, and they were fulfilling requests of Israel for Iron Dome. That was back when that was actually Barack Obama did that.
Yeah.
He put a lot of money into that. But the Iron Dome system, that not being the only system, it is the primary system that intercepts for long-range missiles. But there are hypersonics involved now. We live in a very different world. There are hypersonics. Iron Dome is not going to do too well against hypersonics, and there's new technology out there on the field. It's in the field, and that's why they did not really tell the public about a couple of explosions, which they think right now were hypersonic. They were not, your ordinary.
Are you talking about the one near the Israeli nuclear facility? And
not that one. There was another one.
Oh, the other one?
Yeah, it was another one that was very tactical. They really didn't show too much about it, although the impact is there and the people there were talking about it. But
yeah.
They suspect it was hypersonic because it kind of pulsed past the radar and nobody could do anything about it. Now, we know right now when dealing with hypersonics, China and Russia are leaders in hypersonic
yes,
technology.
They are.
They're leaders. We don't have it yet because we work in tandem with Israel for a laser defense system for their hypersonics. That's why we all offset that. But that's not complete yet. We have that collaboration, but it's not complete yet. So it's one of those tricky situations. But I believe the escalation could take place, given the fact that these terrorist groups could use more advanced weaponry. If that happens, you better believe they're going to have to go in there and stop everything, because if Iron Dome drops in its efficiency of blocking inbound missiles, they're going to have to do something different. And of course, we both know they can be overwhelmed. Iron Dome can be overwhelmed with missiles coming from multiple directions, like 1,000 at a time from the north and the east, right, and the south. So that will be an issue for Iron Dome.
Folks, Mike from around the world is joining us tonight. Want to welcome all 7,900 of you with us live, almost 8,000. Let me just say that this is a very prophetic evening. We're looking at, right as we speak, Israel. It's already May 14th in Israel. It's the 73rd birthday of Israel as a nation since it was rebirthed after the 3,000-year prophecy of the dry bones that one day it would happen. And on its birthday, it's engaged with an enemy that is firing rockets at Israel at unprecedented rate and is causing the Iron Dome to be, I don't know how much the Iron Dome can keep going before they start to run out. And that's my next question to Mike from around the world who's with us tonight is, Mike, they also have what I think is called David's sling and arrow, and they also have the Patriot missile system. So are those their backup systems? Will we start to hear more about them? Or are they more for long range? Are they going to be needed in case Iran starts to fire some stuff out of Syria?
Patriot and Iron Dome are very similar. They're very similar. A Patriot system is the only difference would be that Patriot would be much more effective at blocking chemical weapons coming in, biological weapons coming in, something like that, because shrapnel often accompanies some of the Patriot systems, unless they use some of the newer warheads in that system. But they're all similar. All of them are similar. Some are offensive more than defensive, but it really depends on if we have any terrorist groups around that will start using short range, we're going to have a problem. That's going to pose a problem. Long range, the interception rate's going to be good. It's going to hold that. It's going to hold it up. In fact, it's not very hard to run those systems. They run themselves. But when you're dealing with short-range missiles, or if you have the enemy that breaches a specific border, then you have a problem, because then you have to manually identify things, right?
Yeah,
and
that's a lot harder.
And so that's why they want to keep all the enemy forces pressed outside to a certain distance, because that would make these systems ineffective if anything were to be short range on a continuous basis. And when you know it, that's exactly, Hezbollah knows this. All these terror groups out there, they know it, because do you remember a couple of years ago, it was almost like the U.S. and Israel and some other folks, because everything calmed down, they began to brag about the technology. Yeah. And they started to tell the world and reporters about the technology. Well, I hate to tell people, if a reporter knows it, so does the world. So you can't tell reporters everything.
Loose
right?
lips sink ships. Yeah,
that's right.
Loose
you
lips.
Can't do that.
Yeah.
I know that people like to know things. I know they hate secrets. but we could die if we divulged secrecy.
Yeah.
Even in the Bible, it says, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is
Right.
doing. Don't do it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they did that. And so immediately, right from there, these terrorist groups began to change tactics. And it's unfortunate, but it's something we're going to have to deal with. By prophecy, it's not, things are going to look weird soon. They're going to look strange. It'll look, for some folks, it may be depressing, but they really shouldn't be depressed. God will never abandon Israel. He's doing something with all this, but it will escalate. It's going to get fierce. It will also expand.
Okay. Well, Mike, we have a blood moon coming on May 26th, a super blood moon at that. It's quite interesting that that's approaching during this volatile time. I mean, I don't think in the next 12 days this is going to be over. We may see a ceasefire, we may have a de-escalation, and we may have a total outright, all-out breakout. Do you feel that that's what's coming here? I read scripture out of Amos where it says, God says, I will set a fire on the walls of Gaza because of their third and fourth transgressions. Is there some of this coming to pass now?
Well, Pastor Paul, I'll tell you what, out of all the blood moons, this one is most notable to me. This one is.
Me too.
Out of all the blood moons, this one is most notable. And just look how things are starting to form surrounding this blood moon. And of course, in Genesis, it says God set them in the skies, the stars in the sky, and all these lights in the skies for signals and for seasons. I like to use that word signals. That's the Hebrew definition of it, signals. So they mark moments in man's time, in our time. So it indicates something. God didn't do it on accident. He did that on purpose. And just for a side note to most people, because sometimes people get this mixed up, the word came first and then creation was made. So creation tells of the word. Right. So everything in creation is going to echo the word, but everything follows the word. And all these blood moons and alignments and everything, they mean something. God never did anything in vain. He does not like vanities, and he does nothing vain. And nothing he set forward comes back void. So everything is purposed. We just have to do our best to be aware of the seasons of those purposes. And of all the seasons that we've been in, this one seems to be the most troubling.
All right, Mike,
troubling.
Before we get to time dilation, I have to first ask you about this black fungus that's happened in India. 2,000 people in one area, all former COVID patients, have come down now with this flesh-eating disease. It's called the black fungus, but it starts generally around the nose area, the mouth, the eyes, and just starts eating away at the flesh. And then it takes a very expensive antibiotic, I understand, to stop it. And of course, in India, they don't have that kind of money. People, they don't have insurance. People don't have money. It's devastating. And I don't know, I guess it's contagious, apparently. Can you help me understand what is this? And what is the odds of this thing because only affecting the ex-COVID patients? So is there something genetically been changed, this virus?
A lot of people in India, of course, you already know they have strange practices, right? They ingest things that, milk, for example, that rats have already fed on. They will drink that. And they have their practices. And like you said, it's not the most expensive place. There are a lot of people living in massive poverty in India. And so they don't have cleanliness standards as we would, right? So their immune systems are already compromised. When COVID-19 hits a person, it really devastates a person's immune system. Here in the U.S., we can wash our hands and we have, all these disinfectants. So we have assistance, but over there they have to deal in some pretty harsh elements, pretty harsh conditions, unsanitary conditions. And you add burning bodies to that or dead people to that, right, where cholera could break out or something like that. You're going to have you're going to have a promotion of just a plethora of different types of bacteria and all sorts of things. And that bacteria is actually growing the way it does, and it's multiplying the way it does because of weak immune systems, a lack of sanitation, chemicals, and so on and so forth. And so they can't disinfect. When you can't disinfect, you have this stuff all over the place. And when you have COVID-19, you'll notice people who had COVID-19, they could have difficulty breathing for months. They could be sniffing or coughing for months. They'll have symptoms for months because their immune system is not up to 100%. And when you're constantly around, bacteria from dead bodies and different diseases, it will take effect. And it just clings on to it. It's spreading all over the place is what it's doing. And it's unfortunate, very sad, but it's really sad. But unfortunately, without disinfecting, without cleaner conditions, without, some intervention, that's going to continue to be a problem because these people with COVID-19, their immune systems are only running at about 30%.
So this could actually become a major epidemic in India because, as you said, and everything you said about especially in the more rural areas and even in the cities like Calcutta and New Delhi and these places that are gigantic amounts of cities with a lot of slum areas, and then of course out in the rural areas. I mean, I've been out there and I know, and it's really horrifying. It's really tough to survive.
It is.
And so I really feel for these people. They're wonderful people. They're beautiful people, and it's just they have such a very difficult thing, and this could become very, very bad. So I don't think we've seen I don't know if we even know the ramification at the end of the day of this thing. I
don't either because, upon being in the human body, it could change. It could become more robust. And if it's taking one of those strongest antibiotics on the planet to kill it, it could potentially get worse. So that, even having that resistance means it's very resilient. I would suspect that mold is actually from primates.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them there. Okay, the monkeys run wild there all the time. And that's another question. We have a problem in Australia. Now, we're going to get to the time dilation because I need to get to that. But I don't even know. I tell you, I saw the video, mice by the gazillions. And I don't even know if that's a number. You've seen it, Mike. They're literally eating up the haystacks. They're harvesting the wheat in the field, and the thing that shoots it out, that dumps it into the trucks, mice falling like rain. What has caused this? This is Australia. What has caused this?
They're migrating. They're being pushed out of the ground, Pastor Paul. They're being pushed.
Well, what's pushing them?
I hope everybody understands this because in USA, we're going to have that same problem. We're going to have the same problem.
Is it the magma? Is it the lava? Is it the heat? What's causing
the conditions in the earth? All the forces are changing on our planet. By the way, all of them are. And underneath the ground is just there's some drastic changes underneath the ground there. For example, there are, I think to date in the last 2 years, NOAA lost billions of dollars. Well, I wouldn't say billions. I'd say hundreds of billions worth of sensors lost. They're gone. They're all burnt up. And so they're having to actually inspect or replace how they look at certain things from space to save money so they don't lose money from, burrowing sensors into the earth anymore. But lots of money has been lost because magma is shooting all over the place. Very hot.
So it's coming?
You have tectonic shifts. You have tectonic shifts of massive force that are crushing things that have not been crushed before. You have places like South Carolina, and they're doing work in the ground in South Carolina trying to determine if a specific crack in a specific location is going to become worse, because if it does, you're looking at something popping in South Carolina. You're looking at, there are teams all over the U.S. and indeed all over the world working at breakneck pace, trying to get a handle on all these changes that are happening in the crust. And people aren't really aware, but I have a small message indicating that. I'll do that near the end of the show. I hope people take it seriously, though.
Wow! Wait a minute.
So
when you say that mice are going to come out of the ground in America, I mean, we're trying to grab. I'm trying to. Where? Where are we at? Kansas? Where's it going to be, Mike?
Everywhere. I'll give you an example, Pastor Paul. The rodent migration, right? Rodent migration, because of instabilities in the earth, has actually started a little bit. People, for example, people in Ohio, Pennsylvania, those states up north, they're noticing they're having to deal with rodents a little more often. But all of a sudden, they kind of went away a little bit. There are new type insects in our southern regions. But here we have it again. Just about a few months ago, they began to deal with rodent infestation in certain areas. Again, especially with people with wells in those areas, they're starting to migrate. They're being pushed up. So the nature of animals are changing, right? Which indicates that the earth is changing. Their migration habits are going to change based upon the changes in the earth, the differences in magnetics in the earth, so to speak. And so we're going to have to deal with that. But there will be a massive rodent migration. They will have behaviors we're simply not used to.
All right, Mike. Let's talk about, what did you say you're going to let us know about at the end?
An issue with the U.S. at the end.
All right, okay, issue. I just got to write this down so I don't forget. Okay, time dilation.
Time dilation.
What do you mean? Okay, I've been trying to figure this out for a week. Talk to me. And does Planet X got anything to do with this?
I would say that any secondary system can actually kick it off, and because we have, there's almost direct evidence of some extraordinary forces taking effect on Earth. Yeah, we're going to deal with it. But it's something that I tell you what, if people aren't ready for it, they're going to fall prey to it. It's that simple.
What is time dilation? Okay, so then what is it, Mike?
Everybody knows that your pupils can dilate, right? So they change abruptly, correct? They get bigger, right? So time can also do the same thing. Time can do the same thing. Whoa. Time is consistent, constant, right, for us. We perceive time collectively together, which means it has some sort of consistent basis. And it's always on the move, so to speak, right? So it's something that we don't observe, but we work in and out of it all the time. Personally, I do not believe God is bound by time. I believe that God has this concept of time just for us so that we can reflect on things we have done. God need not reflect on what he did because he's different than us. Anyway, time dilation happens to affect the human brain. People have had car accidents, right? They've had car accidents. And in a car accident, they have something called hypermindedness, which means when you have that, boxers can do that, by the way. I used to do a little kickboxing back in the day, and it used to happen to me often, right? You be trained, your mind can go just at light speed. And so everything around you slows down, right? People have memories of small details in car accidents and when they have traumatic moments. Sometimes children, when they go through trauma, they're just simply not there. It can be totally wiped out of their memory. They can observe the trauma externally, like they're not there, right? So, which can let everybody know that the body is a limiter upon the spirit. So the body keeps us in this environment, timed to this environment. Well, magnetics, they have learned that magnetics, I'm going to just use that term, magnetics, is one of the influential sources upon how we perceive time and how time operates. CERN has been playing with it all this time, right? They've recreated the Big Bang. They have extracted primordial materials already, which is, that stuff is likely affecting the entire Earth, but they've already done that. They've achieved that. They've achieved so much, it's not even funny. Of course, I do not subscribe to the Big Bang. That's the dumbest thing I ever heard. But anyway, they believe it. That's on them. But they have recreated this. But when they did this, they noticed that time is not perceived the same way you normally would perceive time outside of the collision is perceived differently for those inside the collision. There's more than a fraction of time lost to those who are in that facility in certain places during a collision. So it messes with them mentally, right? So imagine something having the ability to freeze your mind, right? For example, a dream. I remember one time, Pastor Paul, I had a dream that it seemed like it lasted for about 4 months, right? But it was only like a 2 or 3 minute dream. right? Because everybody knows in REM sleep, you only have REM sleep for about 30 minutes. That's it.
Yeah.
And then you're done, right? But when you dream, sometimes your dreams are quite extensive.
Yeah.
But you're dreaming for fractions of a second. You're not dreaming the duration of time that you have in that dream. Your dream may last 4 or 5 seconds max.
What?
But to you, it seems like it's been an hour,
4 or 5
half hour.
hours.
You have a bunch of stuff, which means your perception of time is limited by your consciousness or being awake. But outside of this body, time is very different than we suspect. Time limits light. It limits our perception. It limits how we sense things and feel things, which is why when you're sleeping, you feel no pain. They had a debate about this. When a person is in bad pain, but they're asleep, they have no pain. They're still in the same body. Why don't they have pain? It's not that their brain shuts down the pain centers or anything else. It has to do with what doctors and scientists believe is the soul, which is why they keep hunting for it, because they want to know what in the world is happening here. They still don't understand it. Time dilation can also be forced, and this is a problem. This is the problem.
Whoa! You're saying time can be slowed down or speed up be forced by? You saying humanity could do it? Are we talking?
Oh yeah, somebody can do it. Somebody can do it.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Who can do this? How?
So that means your perception of time can be affected by anybody who really wants to do that. They can affect the way you perceive things.
Whoa. With drugs, smoking dope, or what?
No. It's all done by magnetics and forces and some of the things we already have in place. Okay. But even worse than that, the planet can do it to all of us. And it can have it to where it's different for everybody. And it's going to be based on a person's physiology. Now, here it is.
I'm ready.
Some people have been noticing, people who love animals, right? I know they love their animals. Right. They love animals. They love nature. They love everything, right? They have people normally when they're out there in the woods and stuff, they really don't notice things paused in time, you could say, right? But compared to those out in nature observing things, have you ever been walking with a lot of people around, but it seems like, at certain times nobody can see you, right?
Yeah.
I was I knew I had to be the heaviest guy walking down the hallway in the mall one time. It was like everybody was bumping into me, right? I never understood that. But then it happened to somebody else, and then it happened to somebody else, and then other people began to have the same phenomenon. It's almost like nobody could hear them, nobody could see them, nobody could do anything. And come to find out, in those areas where this happened, if you go back in the record of our magnetosphere, sure enough, there was spikes of activity in the magnetosphere, right? The magnetosphere can induce time dilations on the Earth, which could cause us to perceive time differently, right? That means this could cause massive confusion. This could also cause people to go out of their minds and some of the other effects we don't know about. They have done experiments where they have induced strong pulse fields around people's minds. And these people perceived a world that just wasn't there, right? They also perceived very relevant things of the past. And they also had visions of things that hasn't happened yet. So it's almost like magnetism and this force that we have in our magnetosphere and the instabilities that we're about to experience from all this incoming force coming from a different centralized force is going to affect the minds of a lot of people, causing them to become with a heightened paranoia, let's say a heightened paranoia, a type of madness, a person not being able, right, to cope with life because they simply can't make sense of it from time to time.
Is it the pressure? Is it the force fields? Is it the gravitational pull? I mean, what's causing is it the life's problems? Is it the electric bill? What causes it?
Our magnetosphere is somewhat stable, right? It has holes in it, but it's somewhat stable. Without the magnetosphere, your neurological connections, some of them are going to break and your neurons will not fire right? Which means your thought processes are going to be scrambled from time to time. Scrambled, put back together, scrambled, put back together. Which means you'll be walking, but it'll almost be like a dream state when you're wide awake. That means you can look at a person, you're going to see things in a person that may not be there. You may perceive a person as something that they're not. You see, it's going to be a problem
that sounds like
with people's perception.
Is it sort of like augmented reality. You know what I'm saying?
It could be, but it's worse. Think of a nightmare that has no. If you're stuck in a nightmare and you're just glad you woke up, but in this case, it'll be induced upon you. And so you'll start perceiving the world in a dreamlike state, which is it causes a person to be of a high state of fear. It's also known, they know this at CERN, to cause people to see spiritual things, what people would call spiritual things.
CERN.
So that means for a person, they can walk out the front door and all of a sudden the entire spiritual realm can become visible. Well, it's full of
strong
demons
delusion.
around us, right?
Okay, is that part of is that strong delusion? CERN? Is that what we should be? Should we be concerned about CERN? What have we learned?
Well, you know what? They're doing it. Mankind is doing this. And obviously they're not going to stop. And there are going to be consequences. There have been, there will be. But the mind, our physical minds are very fragile. You know, we've been blessed this far, not to be thrown into an asylum, all of us, but we've been blessed. But if you haven't noticed, people's ability to hold back their emotional state is being lost.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
why you see violence rising the way it is. People are having less and less control of their emotions.
Mike,
right?
I saw a guy tonight at the restaurant. Heidi and I, we sat down, just barely sat down, and this guy was at a table, and he wanted his pizza, and he wanted it now. It wasn't a Pizza Hut or any place. It was an Italian restaurant, and the guy said he wants a pizza. And the waiter's carrying out the pizza. He's carrying the pizza out. And the guy's like, I want it now. Okay, and I'm like, whoa, what's up with this dude? And then, so the guy's like, calm down, I'm bringing. He goes, bring the check, just bring the check, forget it. He goes, sir, here. I'm thinking to myself, this dude either needs jack slapped or something. Something needs to happen. Mike, is that what you're saying? People,
it's happening. You should have seen the other day in the streets of New York City.
Okay.
There were a couple of people discussing Palestine and Israel. All of a sudden, they began to argue, and people began to crowd around them. Before you knew it, in less than about 2 minutes, the entire crowd was electrified.
What?
At each other's throats. And some people were hurt, right?
They just broke
like
out?
That. Just like that, things are happening. That's right. Just like that. But here's the so bad. You know, the crime rate is going up every single day. Do you know that? It's going up every day.
Yeah, it is.
We're not talking about your average people shooting people, not like a person they're known robbers and stuff like that. No, we're talking about average citizens who are losing it. It's a phenomenon going on that none of the 3-letter agencies can figure out. They're really stumped by this. Why would your average American just go off the hinges and kill people? Why would they do this? People are killing their own families.
Mike, you told us.
Rising.
You told us this 7 years ago or so. You said, Pastor, I remember this because you said, pretty soon you're going to see the animals acting totally outside the norm, just doing. And then you said, then people will start doing it, and they'll become aggressive, and they'll become violent. And they'll become no more logic, beyond reason. And you're right. The crime, you know what? It doesn't matter about the policy. I understand. I don't like some of the policies that's been going on. But at the end of the day, I don't care what the policy is. It don't make me want to go out and just kill people. So there's something going on in the soul and in the mind of the humans, right?
There is. And if a person's spirit is not grounded in Christ, right, they have no defense. They have zero defense. And even in the Bible, it says that people are going to go into a type madness. They're going to turn, doesn't it say they're going to turn and eat the flesh of their brother?
Yeah, it does say that.
Whoever's beside them or something like that.
Yeah,
they're going to kill everybody beside them. Well, if you can't perceive reality the way that you have perceived it, and you're totally out of control with your mind and everything else, but you're not spiritually grounded, you're not going to be a good person to be around. And so this is happening. The sad part is happening more and more. And it's a shame that it's going to reach a state to where you have mobs in groups that will just simply begin to act out of a high state of emotion and a type of euphoria where they will take the lives of others and not feel ashamed about doing it. Immorality also is rising at the same time, which is a curious phenomenon because normally you don't have murder and high immorality rise at the same time. So something is taking effect, and it is scientifically backed, big time scientifically backed.
Okay, now let's ask ourselves. CERN and some of the things it's deriving from the CERN experiments could be affecting, or maybe is. But is Planet X, or the passing of this binary twin system, also causing this, or is it a combination?
I think that's the majority of it. I think that what's external from our planet, and indeed our solar system, that those objects that are in question, I believe that they are causing the majority of it.
Okay.
We have an inbound clump of forces coming in, and they have very strong forces associated with them, right? As time goes forward, the problems are getting worse. Right, they're getting worse,
yeah.
And it's not. If it were just a medical problem, well, then you could track that, right? But it's not, because it's not consistent with any type ailment. Even the pandemic is not consistent with the pandemic, nor any type disease. If it were drugs, it will be consistent with a demographic where those drugs are being distributed, this, that, and the other. That's not the way it's working. If it were the water or something like that, well, you could track that, but it's not what it is. This is something that has nothing to do with any of those components, but everything to do with the buildup. Outside of whatever happens on Earth is still building up. So your nice little old lady that's down the street, she has a potential to beat somebody's brains in with a baseball bat.
What?
That's what's happening.
My grandma might have done that back in the day if you messed with her kids, but that's different.
Woman, they did that.
Okay.
A 75-year-old frail woman, they did that just a couple of days ago. So it's kind of horrific. So I'm not going to state the rest of it.
The Bible talks about, Mike, that perilous times will come, dangerous times will come. Okay, and he says there'll be 5 people in a house, 3 against 2, 2 against 3. We think of that as like people arguing over the remote, but really, we could be talking about people literally wanting to kill each other and violence and viciousness. Remember what it was in Genesis 6? The earth was filled with violence.
Yeah, violence. Even the animals were violent.
Yeah, and Jesus said, as it was then, it will be in the end.
Yep. So it's just a sad thing to watch, because if people aren't grounded in Christ, if they're not walking in the Spirit, or they don't even know what that is, how can they make it? Because they're gonna live their life in response to the flesh.
So can we as Christians? I guess my question to you is, as Christians, by the Holy Spirit, can we shelter ourselves, protect ourselves from these principalities, powers, these manipulations, these forces of pressure? Can we live above this? Can God help us? What are your thoughts?
Pastor, absolutely. You know what? I'm living proof of that, literally and medically living proof of that. Here's my belief. This is my humble belief. It's just my belief. I believe that so long as I'm following Christ, and I'm in his footsteps, following him in his path, right? Nothing can penetrate his path. Nothing can. Nothing, because his blood is all over it. Nothing can penetrate that. I do know for a fact that the moment I step off that path, I'm on my own, and I'm at the mercy of anything. I'm in the devil's territory. There is no gray area. If we're not behind Christ, if we're not following Christ, well, then we're in the devil's territory, because his territory is everywhere outside of the path of Christ. Yeah. I also found out something else, that everything I ever needed and everything that I ever desired, Pastor Paul, has been right behind Christ this entire time.
Amen.
But when we lead ourselves, that's the big problem, because we don't know what we're getting ourselves into. And there are probably some others out there that said, you know what, I've tried to figure this thing out on my own too much. I'm going to just go ahead and follow Christ, because Christ has already walked these things out before us. The problem is we have a bad habit of wanting the proof that something will work, because we've been hurt and let down too much.
Yeah.
Well, we need to understand that Christ is not going to let us down, nor has he. We thought he let us down because we weren't asking him for things. We used his name, but we were asking to have our will come true on the earth, not his will. And so all we have to do is step into his will, right?
Right.
And then we'll begin to see it, because without faith, one cannot see it. They have to follow Christ first. Now, in that, medically and everything else, we're really taken care of. A person's going to go through things. We're going to go through things, because there's a question that God asks of us from day one to the day we leave. You know what it is? Will you follow me no matter what? I always keep in mind that the fallen angels fell. The most beautiful angel he ever created, right?
Yep.
He was corrupted.
Yep.
He doesn't want his children to be corrupted either. But he doesn't have robots. He has people who have free will. And if we choose him without seeing him, without having all the proof, and if we do that in adverse conditions, under all conditions, all of what we go through on earth, if we continue to say yes, then when we are restored back unto him and we can see him in his presence, we'll never say no. We'll be locked as family forever and we'll never fall.
When we rise in his likeness, then we'll be satisfied. In other words, we will be in, yes. Folks, Mike from around the world's with us tonight. I want to thank all 8,300 of you, something like that, whatever it is. Probably the largest crowd we've ever had on a Thursday night. Certainly a wonderful crowd of people, and what a prophetic time you should be here. And Mike, you touched on so many things that are so important that we are talking about. Yes, Planet X, or let's say Nibiru, that binary system, as you said, that's probably the majority of what's encountering the soulical mind and the spirit of man and causing us to be in this disarray of anger and frustration and violence. But the remedy is Jesus Christ. The blood of Christ is our protection. The shield of faith can fight off all the fiery darts of the wicked. And I think you've been bringing this out so well, so elegantly, that we have come to this realization. Now, having said all those things, people, it's not time to just crawl in a hole and give up. I mean, we're victorious through Christ, and Mike knows that. I think many of you watching know that. We have the power in the name of Jesus, but we have to continue to faith without works is dead. We've got to work that faith. We've got to exercise that faith. And I'm going to give you an important update. I haven't shared this yet, but most of you knew about the stroke I had in December of 2019, live on the air. And then quite a bit of cognitive issues that I've had to deal with since then. But it's been more than that. And I've had to deal with also ability to walk, and I've lost a lot. I had lost considerable amount of balance. It's the reason I've been in here for Florida for some time in treatment. Just last week, I woke up one morning and began to realize I didn't need to what we called surfing. It's when you have to keep touching the couch or the table or the wall to keep from falling down. And that morning I got up and I started walking and I realized, whoa. Now, I was still throwing my hands up a little bit for balance, but I wasn't surfing no more. Heidi said, you're not surfing no more. And this morning she said, hey, yesterday and today I noticed you're not doing the John Travolta thing, staying alive, trying to keep the balance. Something's happened, Mike, and that all of a sudden now my gait's getting better and I'm a little bit off, but I'm not needing assistance. I'm not needing that. My balance is coming back. And so there's God is saying to me, keep walking by faith. I'm physically walking by faith, but we're all spiritually walking by faith. Am I right, Mike?
That's it, Pastor Paul, to continue to walk under any, one time, Pastor Paul, when I was really broken, I was broken. But in that time, it was something given to me, right? Before I was broken or hurt, I was severely injured to the point of death. I was injured. But something came to me and it says, okay, you boasted that you would serve me, right? I'd serve you anywhere, anytime.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Anytime. Well, will you serve me now and not complain? Will you take this and go forward with me? And all I could do in that moment was sincerely really think about it. And you know what? From at that moment, what I quit doing? From that day, I stopped asking for anything from me. I said, I need not do that. This is the Lord talking. My life is the Lord speaking to me, saying, will you serve me in all conditions? Will you be part of this? Will you be part of the king, a citizen of the kingdom of heaven, right? Or join heir with Christ under all conditions. No matter what, will you do it? Because I want my answer to be yes, authentically, not just out of my lips, but the way I live. And then just like he starts to restore you,
yes.
He did the same thing to me. Because in my left ear, Pastor Paul, I lost all the fluid in my left ear and some other things. So I know about the surfing, right? It took me 4 months to be able to walk again. But the Lord can do things we can't. There's no way we can imagine what he can do, right? We can't do that. But I can say this with all certainty. Everything we ever needed was right behind him. It's right behind him.
Amen.
It's right behind him. And so following Christ, really following him. That's it, Pastor Paul. Everything I was looking for was right there.
Right.
That's completeness. That's a thoroughness. That's a satisfaction of joy. He said, I give you my peace. I don't need my own peace. I don't need to make my own peace. He gave me his. And so long as I follow him in truth, with integrity, right, and honesty. And I thank God for all the brothers and sisters in Christ, because you know what? I've realized without the rest of the audience, we would always go astray in some way. They keep us humble. You know,
Yep.
it takes all of us in this community to really watch out for one another. Not kill each other, but watch out for one another.
Thank you.
And I appreciate so much. So many people don't know how much I appreciate them, but I do. You start to see the whole picture. And the Lord has never failed us.
Right.
We just failed to follow him. That's
Amen.
all.
Amen.
But we're getting it. Isn't it like the Lord is waking us up?
Yep.
I know we had you preserved for a while, Pastor Paul. I bet you the Lord said, no, I'm not going to lose Pastor Paul to anything else. He's my work. You have
Jesus.
something for you.
Well, I believe that. I believe that, and I'm
Yeah.
totally in the Lord's hands. Whatever He wants to do, I'm just a little lump of clay. All right, Mike. Now, before you go, you're going to have that issue for us.
Oh yeah, here it is.
All right.
And I'm taking me seriously. A storm is coming. Now, I can't give you any timing on this, but a storm is coming, which is going to take out the electricity. So I hope that people are prepped for this.
When you say take out the electricity, do you mean like for a large section of the country, the world? What are you talking about?
Well, Pastor, an unusual storm will come. And the power is going to be a consequence of this storm. You're just not going to have power now. Is it going to be out forever? No, certainly not. It won't be. But it will take it out. So people ought to have this in their minds, prepare for it. Let's not live. I hope that people take it seriously. I can't give a time on this. Okay. It could be at any moment. Just be ready at any moment to adjust your lives.
So this is America, because this issue warnings for America.
Yeah, this is America. This is for America. A storm will come, and the power is going to go kaput. So just make sure that
is it man-made, Mike? Is it a weapon of warfare, or is it something that's coming from an act of God, what we call an act of God, or something coming from the cosmos?
Well, this storm is one of those real storms. It's a doozy. It's a storm. It's an unusual storm, but man didn't do it. Man is not going to do it, unfortunately. And you know what? It could be a little more than America. I'm not in those other countries to have any details about them.
I see.
But
this is intel. This is intel that you
have. Like right in the bullseye, right? We're kind of like in the bullseye.
So you're saying this because there's intel you have got access to, and so you're giving us a heads up that there's a storm coming.
If people are prepped, basketball, knowing that lights could potentially go out for about a month, then I think they would be better prepared to handle things, right?
Yeah.
Rather than not knowing at all, right?
Yeah.
Well,
thank you for the heads up, and seriously appreciate that very, very much. And of course, that won't be released to the general public by the powers that be, because you'd have a massive panic, and they can't have that kind of panic. So thank you for giving us a heads up. And not only that, thank you for being here every Thursday night, and with a powerful word you bring, always with grace and mercy, and yet telling us exactly what it is we need to know. And I know that tonight, in the most vulnerable time we've ever seen, we're getting close to the coming of the Lord, and people need to be ready.
Amen. Well, Pastor Paul, is always an honor. It really is.
I look forward to seeing you next Thursday night, my brother.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
God bless.
Mike from the world, folks. Listen. Nobody wants to hear about that. Nobody wants to hear the lights are going to go out for 30 days. But how many times in the last 10 years or 8 to 9 years I've been interviewing Mike that he's told us about things that were coming, and his track record has been pretty powerful. I would say it's probably around 90%, and maybe the other 10% is because it just hasn't come yet. I'm just going to say this. When a person has the ability to at least share some info without breaking classified information, just giving a hint, giving us information, giving it a heads up, I think that's important. We should all pay attention to that. Just like the Bible gives us a heads up, tells us what's going to happen, whether we like it or not. He told the prophets, don't ask whether they like it or not. You just tell them what's going to happen. whether they hear or forbear. And I'm going to tell you, folks, you're not going to be around here forever. First of all, we're all going to die. Whether we like, I don't care what. We're all going to face death unless the rapture comes first. And the majority of us, death will find us, probably. It doesn't matter. The question is, what kind of shape are you in when it happens to you?